Have you ever wondered why games today suck? Maybe it's because nowadays you have to make the tough choice between paying for your teeth or buying a bag of discounted apples. Whatever the reason, we're going back in time to play the games that made our childhoods great. Get in, loser, we're going time hopping. Before we grab the game by the Ghoulies, I need to inform you that you are being acquisitioned for $375 million. Wait, sorry, that's not you, but in 2002 that did happen when Microsoft Game Studios bought out a development company called Rare. A rare known fact about this company is that they used to develop games for Nintendo, and even went on to develop big titles like Sea of Thieves. But we're not here to see thieves. We're here to talk about Grab by the Ghoulies, which is an action-adventure game where players control a young boy named Cooper as you venture into a haunted estate to rescue your girlfriend from supernatural creatures. The only thing supernatural about this game is that it was exclusively available on the original Xbox as of October 2003. The game might have been released in 2003, but it was not 2003, as the game was originally sold at the standard retail price of $50. If you're feeling frisky, you can still buy it on your newer Xbox consoles, as it was re-released in 2015 under a new collection titled The Rare Replay. But don't worry, it's not $50 anymore, you can now get it at a steal of $30. Knowing what a free thinker you are, I know that you need to know what other people thought about this game so that you can know how to feel about it too. Well, unfortunately for you, the reviewers not only felt that this game lacked depth and replayability for seasoned gamers, but they also felt like the game was more suitable for Nintendo than for Xbox. But don't let the reviewers make you feel negative towards this game, because remember, it had to compete with the critically awaited Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup, which was released in the same month. Before we get into the game, I quickly wanted to interrupt and ask those of you who haven't subscribed already to maybe hit the subscribe button down below. I'm really trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you have subscribed or you're planning on subscribing, thank you very much. With that being said, let's get into the game. The game kicks off with two kids, Cooper and Amber, taking a leisurely stroll down the treacherous path your parents claim they used to walk to school. Nothing says adventure like unpredictable weather, because out of nowhere a terrible rainstorm decided to poop on their party. Luckily for them, their party is about to turn into a trio when they decided to go join the spooky stranger who was hiding in the ominous mansion. I don't know about you, but the rules of life and breaking and entering usually don't apply when you risk getting your hair wet. So who needs manners when you're avoiding a bit of rain? Like most of us would, the owner of the house then had a bit of an overreaction and decided to kidnap Amber to teach the kids a lesson in Southern hospitality. Usually Cooper wouldn't mind, but Amber still had his limited edition Spider-Man watch in her pocket, so he had no choice but to go after her. Once inside, the butler rudely unleashed his guard dogs on us. They looked a bit sick, and they were making these weird noises as if they were choking, so we did the proper thing and helped them out. Amidst all of the chaos, a random chair then plopped right into the middle of the room. Because he is an all-around great guy, I have Cooper move it out of the way, because after all, the last thing we need is for another trespassing kid to sue the mansion's owner because they tripped over misplaced furniture. I guess the sound of a chair's legs scraping across the floor must have signaled out our alpha aura, because those dogs from before came back for round 2. You know what they say, I can accept failure, but I can't accept not trying. So we tried our best to reinforce the message that what we might lack in manners, we don't lack in moves. Just when I thought that things were settling down, the butler reappears from wherever butlers hide when they're not butlering. He didn't even bring us any tea and scones, which is the only purpose of having a butler, so I decided to also give him a taste of our newfound self-defense skills. In the next room, Cooper gets startled by his own reflection. You'd think that after the first time of being jump scared, he'd recognize himself. But hey, we've all had bad hair days so bad that we almost pull a hemorrhoid upon the mirror side of ourselves. We then ran into these two skeletons who were in the midst of a heated argument. I don't know what about, but I had a bone to pick about their indecency out in public. If you're going to be bony like that, then at least put on some shoes. I think they sensed our judgments because as soon as they caught a whiff of our Axe body spray, they decided that they wanted to be next in line to be disassembled. It was only after Cooper had exposed of the remains that I realized that we had just committed double friendicide, as all of the portraits in the room were of the two together. Cooper felt so guilty and he wished that he could turn back time, so I destroyed a clock and booked it out of there. After hours of searching, we finally tracked down Amber, who turned out to not even be in any danger. We find her in the next room and she's just lazily chilling in a chair, as if being kidnapped is part of her daily routine. We just wanted to snatch our watch out of her pocket and get out of there, but she's a prankster, and she suddenly gets sucked into a wall. I don't know if you knew this, but the next time you're looking for your keys, try and find a purple monster, beat it to a pulp, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find it in your drawer. Continuing on our quest to find Amber, we stumble into the next room, only to find that someone had accidentally dropped their can of baked beans while fleeing from a mob of angry Englishmen. Naturally, we decide to eat the beans because who can resist a free meal in our current financial climate? Unfortunately, they give us more than just an extra life, they also give us some serious bowel problems, so we freak out and immediately lose that extra life by running into a thorn. Not appreciating the thorn's audacity, I attempt to call the police, but instead, I got a case of brown surprise. Let's just say it wasn't the kind of backup I was hoping for. It seems that I accidentally got lost and ended up in Australia, where a big daddy longleg was looking for its mommy shortfoot. Cooper is not about to be groped, so we took the spider down to Pound Town. After killing some spiders, we decided to see what was down the hall, only to find the real Britney Spears locked up. I know that Facebook never lies, and I know that she was cloned, but unfortunately I didn't have the keys to set her free, so instead I decided to do the only rational thing, which was to stare at her for 5 minutes straight. I realized that I needed to get back to that telephone to call the paparazzi, but some ghoulies popped out of nowhere and tried to scare us. I'm not a fan of horror games, so I let the adrenaline take over and I took them to Pound Town too. Amber apparently couldn't stand the sight of us getting so much joy from the thrill of the kill, so she decided to distance herself from us by projecting herself through a trap door. The butler then appeared and casually mentioned that he'd opened the basement door for us to access the archives, which was where Amber was waiting. This was odd because if he had the master key for every door in the mansion, why not just spare us the time and energy and give it to us? I guess them's the rules, but apparently the rules did not apply to the kidnapper, who kept randomizing our health values upon entering new rooms. This means that it didn't matter how many health beans I was hoarding in my pocket, because the game liked to play its own game called Health Roulette, and let me tell you, once he got in, there was no way to keep this guy out of your pockets. I then found a cool film on the ground, and on it were the words birthing video. I didn't know that the guy was so into birds, so we picked it up with the intention of watching it. On our way to the projector, this TV interrupted us by spawning some spiders. I tried to jam the film into the TV because I really wanted to see some birds, but it kept electrocuting us, ultimately costing us 4 energy beans. Whilst trying to beat up the spawned spiders, the fireplace sucked us up and took us into a gaming room. I was excited to see if they had any exclusive Xbox games in this room, but it turns out that a gaming room meant board games, so I was already bored. Disappointed, I decided to throw a jar of hot stones at the room, exploding everything. These chairs didn't like the ruckus I was causing and decided to wake up and offer us a seat. I didn't feel like sitting, but they kept persisting, so I pretended that I was Paul Logan and they were old men. After all the chairs retreated, I found this picture of the butler on a dartboard. It turns out that the Ghoulies had been using his face as target practice, which wasn't very nice because they never even invited us, so I decided to steal the photo and break their board. I then finally found an Xbox exclusive game, but after opening the box, it was only some salesman trying to sign me up for Xbox Game Pass. Sorry Xbox, but I prefer Fit Girl repacks, so you can keep your $12. Cooper found some free burgers, which must have been McDonald's because they've been hidden there for 14 years and still had no mold. Unfortunately, when we tried to leave the gaming room with our 6 number 9s, the door vortex destroyed our collection. Naturally, Cooper was feeling a bit hangry, so he decided to stress clean the basement. It turns out that no one had been down there for ages, so long in fact that mummies had started to spawn. Normal attacks didn't work against these salted remains, so the butler, who had been mysteriously absent, suddenly appeared to hand us a candlestick to fight with. At this point, I was seriously questioning where the butler had been hiding all this time and what his true motives were. I even tried to look for him, to see if I can seek his hide and ask him, but he was nowhere to be found. After toasting some mummies, the butler came out of the closet to take back his candle, and suspiciously he had found Amber and set her free. Once again I was confused, because if he had the master key to unlock her from her chains, why hasn't he set free those other kids that were kidnapped before? The butler was really triggering my jumping to conclusions radar, and I had a suspicion that he was actually the bad guy. Before we could make our grand escape, the butler's weird cousin jumped out of the closet and zapped Amber with a bizarre laser gun. Apparently, it was equipped with 5G waves that implanted tiny robots into her bloodstream, because what else would explain her transformation into a blobfish lookalike? The butler then revealed that his weird cousin, Dr. Crackpot, had transformed Amber into a hideous monster, and only the cook can help us cure her. Amber then kept on chasing us with kisses, but I don't believe in kissing before marriage, so I WWE slammed her because that is what we do to people we like just as sisters. We then went into the kitchen to find the chef so that she could help us cure Amber's affliction, but upon arrival, it was clear that she was too busy playing with the Ghoulies. Surprised by our magical appearance, she accidentally lit the creatures on fire instead of her pot, so she handed us an extinguisher to turn down their flame of life. There was also this skeleton who was still seeking revenge for his slain friends, and I must say that he was the first enemy to actually put up a good fight. We have the power of main character energy though, so he never truly stood a chance. After all, plot armor is the best kind of armor to have in video games. The cook, called Mama, then sent us off to go get the first ingredient for the cure, when the game decided that it was time to throw a new challenge at us, which was to kill all of the zombies before the timer runs out. If we were to fail, the Grim Reaper would appear to give us the good old nipple twist of death. To make matters worse, the zombies have apparently also been indulging in Mama's energy cure, as evidenced by their constant farting. It was like a toxic cloud of undead flatulence, and I was sad that I couldn't join in. It was quite an easy level, and because we were increasing our bad assery stats, we were invited to the annual Ghoulies ball. I was excited to do the monster mash, but it turns out that I was going to have to do the monster smash instead, because surprise, surprise, it was a trap, and in this ball, no humans were allowed. At this point in the game, I read without understanding, because I threw a plant into a skeleton's face, which ultimately started a riot. Turns out, if I actually read properly, I could have passively made my way down the dance floor without any conflict. Lessons learned, but at least Cooper could go about bragging about his new KD ratio. After barely escaping this murder on the dance floor, I made it out of there with minimal damage. In the next room, we were greeted by something called a ninja imp. I don't believe in dark magic, so the fear of the ninja was compelled. With one enemy left, we channeled our inner Karate Kids' nemesis and decided to take them out with the big one. Call it an overkill if you want, but that's what an experienced video game combatant like me does. Either way, it opened up the door for us, and we were finally free to go and find our missing ingredient. Once outside, Cooper knocked on a door, and horrifyingly on the inside, there was a ginger awaiting us. He was a nice ginger though, and handed us an AK-45. The promotion of gun violence wasn't out of the kindness of his heart, as he sent us on our way to get rid of the monsters that had been hiding in his boathouse. I had to get out of there, but unfortunately in the next room, there was this Medusa lady who kept trying to capture a sweet glimpse of our toe jam. My jam was reserved for bread though, so once Cooper found the key for the door, we slipped out of there. After all that hiding and fighting, we decided to take a break and watch these two gassy zomboids fight each other. But we couldn't relax for long though, because a party pirate pooper decided to jump in and ruin all the fun. I didn't have the patience to deal with that, so I left him to finally get the first ingredient, which was a few jars of smelly glowworms. I don't know what will keep the boats from crashing into the rocks now that we took away the light from the lighthouse, but that was a problem for another day. On our way back to the kitchen, I ran into the Hunchback of Notre Dame. The butler informs us that our new adversary is a butterface, and to escape the room, we should punch him in no other place than his face. The whole situation felt kind of mean, especially since he never even punched us back. But at least the background music evened out the situation by being nice and cheerful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Cooper's excited demeanor about picking on someone bigger than him brought about a new sinister feeling from within, and I really started to question both of our morals. Just to prove that I wasn't lying earlier, I wanted to show you how this time when I went back through the ballroom, I made it safely to the other side. It turns out that not every situation in life requires you to throw fisticuffs, but hey, it does make things interesting. I finally make it back to the kitchen to give Mama her glowworms back, and she told us that unfortunately this is a 3-part recipe, so we have to go out to the chicken coops to get some eggs. Before I could leave to go and get the eggs, that pirate from before came back to unfinish my finished business. I don't like murdering in front of a lady as respected as Mama, but I will if I have to. After serving him up on a platter, Mama only had one thing to say. I was on my way to get the deviled eggs when I came across Mama's stash of junk food. If you ask me, it's no wonder that Mama's beans are making us all gassy, because it turns out that it is made with actual toxic gases. I decided to help her out by taking the trash out to the garbage yard, but even there, I couldn't stop the spiders and the Grim Reaper from continuously trying to touch my no-no square. If there was a more hateable character than the Grim Reaper in this game, I would be surprised, as I started to dislike him more than the actual kidnapper guy who we surprisingly haven't heard of for a while. After making it out of that death trap, we made it to the chicken shed, where once again that big friendly Irishman gave us a gun. It turns out that he was strapped and ready for all occasions, except for when he had to deal with the creepy vampire chickens. That was a job for the 12-year-old with untied laces, as he sent us off to deal with them. It turns out the eggs came before the hen, as I proceeded to terminate the whole flock of birds just for one egg. You know what they say, an egg today is better than a hen tomorrow. I don't know what that means, but we got the egg and made our way back to Mama. Back in the cook's kitchen, I had to annoyingly chase this guy around who had stolen our eggs. I know that the price of eggs are outrageous these days, but that doesn't mean that you have to turn to a life of crime. Mama came out of the shadows to then yell at us, as it was her who sent him to help us find the egg. With the egg added to the pot, it was time to go and find the third and final ingredient for the cure. This time we had to find a dungweed, which Mama liked to keep in her back garden. Before we could venture outside, we had to deal with a group of zombies and skeletons. The catch for this level was that we couldn't defeat the same type of ghoulie consecutively. Cooper, feeling particularly bold, decided to swipe a picture of the hunchback man he kicked earlier. Apparently, he thought this would impress Amber by showcasing his male prowess. We finally crawled into Mama's back garden, where the dungweed was waiting for us in a shallow hole. This was probably the easiest ingredient to find, especially since the housemaid had thrown out the soda launcher that we were using to sweeten up our enemies. I tried to share some of it with a girl who was dangling from a statue, but she didn't want it because she already had bad cavities, so I took the weed and ran. Back inside, I ran into Jesse and Clyde, who was looking for the soda launcher that I had stolen earlier. Losers can't be choosers, so they decided to try and take it by force. I thought that just like Medusa, they wouldn't be able to climb the stairs, but they had evolved brains and made their way up to the third step. They couldn't get all the way to the top though, so after 2 failed attempts of scaring me, I blasted them away and put an end to their anarchy. I then had to fight this piece of wood using only objects from the room. This game really encourages you to destroy everything you touch, which is a life skill I didn't know I needed. Once finally in the kitchen, it seemed that Mama had started another fire. She was the clumsiest chef in town, which is probably why she ended up taking a job from the creepy kidnapper living in a haunted mansion. After extinguishing the latest blaze, Mama whipped up the cure and sent us off to the cellar. I can't wait to find Amber and sell her the cure, but before we get into any spoilers, let's wrap up this gameplay section here. I need to let you in on a secret, and no, it's not that I'm spying on you through your webcam, it's actually that I secretly love this game. Now that the cat's out of the bag, I want to tell you why. First of all, I initially bonded with the game because its sense of humor resonates closely with mine. Things such as the quirky character names and the silly antics of the enemies, like falling over and farting, might seem childish to some, but it's exactly the kind of humor that I desire after a long day. I also appreciated the challenges that the game offered. Each level presented me with a new puzzle that kept me on my toes, but I won't lie, it sometimes did get a bit repetitive and annoying. I also really liked that they tried to combat habitual player behavior. So for example, like most players who play video games, I'm a huge health hoarder. But this game randomized your health values each time you entered a new level, so there really was no reason for you to hoard any health, which kind of pushed me into playing in a more strategic and out-of-the-box manner than I normally would. Ultimately, I would say that in a world where games often take themselves too seriously, this game really stood out to me because of its light-hearted approach and engaging gameplay. For me, it was a great game, and I truly think that it deserves a lot more love and attention than I think it's gotten. With that being said, if you want to see another playthrough of Grab by the Ghoulies, or you like this video, make sure to hit the like button down below, and if you want to, maybe even subscribe. I also always like reading and responding to your comments, so don't be afraid to leave your thoughts down under. But for now, that's it for me. I'll see you again someplace and sometime with another video. Bye!
Ugh! Earwax flavour?